Welcome to the Adoption Lounge. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Katie. Thank you so much for joining us again. How have you been, Amanda?
Great. How have you been, Katie?
I'm doing so well. I just got back from Cancun with my husband, and so feeling very rested, very
And
relaxed,
glowy.
and very glowy. I don't know if I got that much glow. It was raining for half of it, and then when we were flying home yesterday, we had our very first snowfall in Chicago.
Welcome back.
Yeah, so it was a nice little welcome back to reality.
Well, I have stayed stateside, but I am going to Wicked tonight, and I'm super excited about it.
I'm sorry.
You should be proud because you love.
I was gonna say I'm a little offended that you're going to see a musical movie without me, because I do feel like the last one you went to is probably Mean Girls, and that was
Yes.
for my birthday.
Yes,
Because I am a huge musical fanatic.
and I am not.
And I mean, I think that she let me play the Hamilton soundtrack in her office one time, and as soon as it was over, she's like, "All right." So I did that.
Checked the box.
Did it, now we can move forward. So you're going with your other friend, who I love,
Yes.
Missy,
Yes.
to go see Wicked. I hope you love it. I can't wait for us to endlessly play the soundtrack in the weeks to come.
I am not, but I am excited about.
It'll be her first time hearing all of these songs.
Yeah, it will be. But I am really excited about our guest today.
Yes. Oh, me too. And Derek has graciously agreed to tell us his adoption story, which is so fun. I got to meet with him initially, and then Amanda got to.
And now Derek and I are best friends.
Yes.
We talk all the time.
They become such good friends that they both had to remind me that I did his meeting, which I feel really terrible about. I just got back from Mexico, you guys. Just a little bit tired. But we're gonna let him tell his story and get to know him. And of course, we love hearing another one of our family's success stories.
Yeah, absolutely. So Derek, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna not hold it against you, Katie. You just got back from Mexico. Like,
Thank
anything
you.
goes. No questions asked there.
You and Amanda, your friendship became so close that, I'm not usually on the group chat anymore. So
Seriously, the sun of our friendship is shining so bright, it's blinding everyone else. That's how I'm like,
we'll find our way back to each other. I feel
exactly. I have
Or
faith.
not.
Whatever you would like to know. I'm so excited to be with you both here today, and sort of share our story with you all. I feel like, gosh, it feels like forever ago that we first talked to you all, but then also it also feels like yesterday. But I feel like that's what parenthood does to you, and what the construct of time does, because it also feels like yesterday. So I'm just so pumped to be here and to chat with you both.
Well, tell us, so when you were first starting out thinking about adoption, what was your life like? What was going on in your head? How did you start that research process?
Yeah, what ultimately, I mean, my husband and I joke that we talked about adoption on our first date, or becoming parents. It was kind of one of the things that it might be somewhat unique to the LGBTQ community, but it's really important to sort of like align on that when you first start starting out, because it's not for everyone. It's not something everyone wants. But we both have such like a loving and cherished memory of our childhoods growing up, both separately, that we kind of knew it was in the cards for us. We also, at the time, now have 7 nieces and nephews between the two of us. So like, uncle quickly became our favorite title, and we wanted to change it to dad really badly. But we were in the point of our life where we were just ready. Like I said, like, not only just how old we were, we just loved that uncle title so much, but we kind of just looked at each other and were like, it's now kind of time. We definitely did our research on the other possibilities of fostering and surrogacy, and honestly, every conversation led back to this sort of beautiful wonder of what adoption could be, and how really sweet and beautiful that sort of building block to our life could be. I think there's something particularly sweet about adoption, how it's mutually beneficial, right, to both birth mom and adoptive parents, and it really centers around the child. So that all just felt really, really good to us, to where when we finally decided, like, okay, we're adopting, it was such an easy, we like looked at each other, we're like, adoption, right? Yeah, like, we're going with adoption. So that's how we kind of finally led on, okay, we're gonna adopt, here it is.
Well, and what led you to adopt or to adoption? Tell me again.
Say the same thing again.
What led you to lifelong? Like, what made you ultimately choose? I mean, besides that, you met with the best, Katie, but
Aw.
That was gonna be my number one. No,
It still can be.
I think in every partnership, there's like the go with the flow person and then the researcher of the family. Hi, I'm the researcher of the family. So I was like the extensively looking through pros and cons, financial impact, different options, because I think those are all really impactful in the decision. We also spoke to as many people as we could about like their journey, sort of couples nationwide. And I think the two sort of sticking points we kept coming back to was not wanting to be narrowed in or tied to a specific state. That felt like it was kind of narrowing the scope for us. But also the just being gay friendly and being a welcoming place for LGBTQ couples. I think there's one thing to advertise it, but another to really live that value. And it was clearly promoted through every step of the process, making us really comfortable. And then I already was gonna say this, but you teed it up beautifully, but just the conversations with each member of the team. I mean, talking to you both every step of the way felt like there's no way we're going to say no to this. I mean, every conversation felt really right. And each one was different about why we would choose lifelong, right? Like the conversation with you, Katie, was so different about your experience and that touched us. And then Amanda talking about this decision overall for us. So I think we were already at that point building the sort of parent intuition of what you know to be true in your gut. Like one part was a checklist, of course, but the other was that gut feeling. And ultimately we really just wanted to feel not othered in this process, and that, you know, us being two dads was not going to be anything not only that birth moms felt any differently about, but that the specific people we were working with on a daily basis with the agency wouldn't have a problem with that either.
Yeah. So you decide on adoption, you decide on lifelong. How did it feel to finally start your official journey? Like, what
Oh
was
my
going through your
gosh.
head?
Well, one, we have like pictures of us as we went to go like place our first deposit because we were like, oh gosh, we have to remember this moment. Like this feels really big.
I think you sent it to
I
me.
think you sent it. I was just gonna
have
say.
that. Yeah,
I feel like
I have it still,
I remember Amanda's like, dude, you sent us a picture of him putting it in the mail.
and it
I've
was
never
so
been
cute.
slightly excited at that point.
We love
I
it.
think it's like a mix of, I'm sure everyone says this, a mix of emotions, but it was probably shock, excitement, fear, and pride all together. I think it was shock that we were full on adults going through the process and preparation to become parents. Like, oh my gosh, are we at this point of our lives? Excitement at the joy and the prospect of becoming a dad. It's always been a dream of mine. So, excitement for that. Definitely fear of the unknown. I think the lack of control, the possible poor outcomes, the weight. Oh my gosh, impatient person here. And then I think the last one was like pride. Like I was really proud of me and my husband for just, we didn't want to rush through that life milestone and sort of miss it for the excitement that it was. Like it can get really easy to get caught up in the wait and the process and it being kind of this drawn out thing. So I think we were just really proud that we were at that point and wanting to kind of relish the moment and obviously capture it with a selfie or two.
Oh, I don't think anyone's ever said that to me before. I think that's
No,
usually there's just so much anxiety, I think, getting started, or it just gets overshadowed by just pure excitement. But I think really living in the moment is because it goes by so fast in retrospect. I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah. I
and
mean,
what a
when
cool
you,
picture to show your kid.
Yes.
yeah. Remember when we first started the process of finding you? But it is weird, right? Like I always somewhat equate it. This sounds different, but adoption in the weird sense that like the house you end up with is this weird alchemy of timing and opportunity and like
Yeah.
fate and all this stuff. But you really have to just like kind of throw your trust into it. And at that point, right, the day we started this process, it felt so surreal to be like, whenever this is, this just started the sort of ripple effect to find what this little human that I now could not imagine my life without. But that just feels like such a monumental day to where that all kicked off. So, like I said, I'm like, now I'm going to tell everyone just take a selfie the day it all starts because you'll want to have that memory for sure.
When people come in the office and drop it off, I always make make them take
She
a picture.
does.
I do. I like pose with your contract.
Yeah,
because I just think
outside.
it's the best lighting, obviously, but I just think it's a special moment to remember.
It is a really special moment.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have a selfie, did it even happen?
Yeah. It was like kind of this weird, we were so happy and excited, but it was raining. So I think you guys know we had like umbrellas and we were like, this
It was
is,
adorable.
yeah, like kind of a rainbow moment, I think you could say.
Aw,
Well, that was beautiful.
such suckers. I'm like,
So take us through your journey a little bit. So you're being presented. How many opportunities did you have? What was it like navigating that?
I might have one of the most unique ones because our first call was our now daughter.
well, you never know, right? I think sometimes
Yeah.
people prepare themselves to talk to a lot of people. I've been hearing that more when I talk to families. They're ready for that. But you never know. It could be the very first person you
When
talk
it's right,
to.
it's right.
Absolutely. And I think we sort of prepped ourselves, and, I'll talk about this at some point during the conversation of advice I would have for my former self or other adoptive couples. But I think we prepared for like, oh, okay, it's going to be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 opportunities to the point where even when it did come, it was almost we were convincing ourselves, like, don't get too excited. This isn't
Mhm.
real. This isn't
Right.
anything yet. But so we actually only had one opportunity, and it was our daughter. It was probably the most emotional day of my life. Obviously, in the rarer instances, this was a somewhat semi-immediate placement,
Mhm.
which I know can tend to be on the rare side. But we actually got the call, and the call was that a birth mom has chosen you, and she's going into labor right now. So getting that call, I remember
Please travel.
yeah, seriously.
Surprise.
Please leave.
The amount of questions that came into my head as the member from Lifelong let us know that on the phone, I think I almost dropped the phone actually. I immediately started crying, and then my husband was like, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" And I'm like, "No, yes, I don't know." But we weren't able to talk. It was like in a loud place. So I said, "Can I call you back in 10 minutes?" And she said, "Yes, but please do. Obviously, this is an immediate situation." So I could tell you what I was wearing, what I was feeling, but the main feeling was this feels big, this feels different. And then obviously we went into kind of immediate action mode, right? Ask as many questions as you could, get connected to the right people that the agency was able to connect us with, whether it was that a social worker or a lawyer at that point, to get kind of the questions that we needed to answered. But I think it was the craziest, most surreal part of it was that we didn't realize that there was like a life chapter of before that call, and then now everything has been after that call, and those two parts of our life could not look more different. But again, I don't even remember the chapter before it. So
I love that. Even to this day, so I'm 40 now, and my favorite story in the whole world is hearing my mom talk about the day she got the call about me. So I love that you have that ingrained in your memory, because I feel like someday your daughter's still going to be telling that story
Oh,
to anyone
absolutely.
who will listen.
it was also surreal too because he had the agency. I guess I had saved it in my phone, or all of the lines go to the same title. So it showed up on my phone, and I was like, my heart just dropped in the most beautiful way possible because this is something. They wouldn't be calling me for any other. It's not like, hey, this one form is missing. It was something pretty big.
Like, this is
Um,
important.
yeah, and I'm just so grateful for that experience because I think I will be able to share that so beautifully with my daughter one day, because it's something that, again, we were out like running errands or making a return to a store, and him and I were sitting on our local train station together, and then it's true, like
Changing your lives.
one call can change your life, and that's the beauty of this process. Is every timeline is different, obviously every adoption is
So
different,
true.
but for us, no preparation, and here we go, and look at us now.
It's so crazy to think that like just a random call just like changes your entire life.
Yeah.
So you probably had to make immediate travel plans. So after we are over the emotion of the situation, talk to me about logistics. How did it go? What happened? Where were
Yeah,
you
so
going? I can't remember.
It was pretty crazy. It was like luckily local-ish to where we live on the East Coast. So again, that was another like beautiful, felt like byproduct of this beautiful story was that, we didn't have to travel across the country or something or make immediate plans, right? We had a dog, like we need to figure out logistics of work and things like that. It ended up being we took probably the day and a half after that to talk to the hospital, to talk to the social worker, to make sure sort of all the logistics of the planning of birth mom being discharged from the hospital or when we were expected to be there. And then the funnier, more beautiful part is once all the sort of T's were crossed and I's were dotted and we knew sort of this was it, obviously we had to take a look at each other and say like, okay, this is it. We're saying yes to this to move forward. But we headed in our car to drive to this place where we got our daughter very close. And we had to stop at a Target. We probably spent like $600 because we had
Seems
to
right.
get formula, we had to get a bassinet, we had to get the car seat for the car seat test. And at that point, I laughed at myself because everything looks like a towel. Like a burp cloth looks like a towel looks like a towel, like all these things looked the same. And so,
So true. And I've never thought of that.
Funny,
Yeah.
but it's
Like,
so
how?
true, right? Like they wrap everything, and they're like, "Look how cute it is," and you're like, "What is it?
yeah,
What am I buying?"
swaddles, muslin blankets, burp cloths, and I was like, babe, all these look the exact same. I don't know what we
There's
need.
different sized
You're like,
towels.
"Buy everything."
Yeah, so it was kind of like this throw everything. We had 2 carts, throw it all in. And then we actually named her on the car ride there. Actually, funnily enough, when we heard it was a girl, we laughed to ourselves because we had 5 or 6 boy names picked out and
course.
1 girl name. So we were like, okay, this is going to be her name. We picked her middle name. Obviously, you have to wait till you see her in person, but that was like kind of the joy and fun of it all that I'm really glad we let ourselves experience. I think obviously there was stress and anxiety of the unknown of does this feel real? We're not letting ourselves get excited, but we still kind of leaned into the humor of it all of like, okay, you had no preparation. Here you go. Figure it out. You will be fine. You are 2 very intelligent people that can do this. And
You are real grown-ups.
yeah, we are at least pretending in a good way to be grown. And in the beginning, like I think everyone sort of realizes post, having a kid, but like they don't need a ton in the beginning. Like
Yes.
they need a lot of love, they need a lot of formula and diapers, but other than that, it's truly just like time to learn them.
Yeah.
And
People always talk about they're like, "How can I be prepared for a last minute situation?" And they seem really full of anxiety. And I'm like, man, there is nothing you can't buy at Walmart or Target. Like you're
So
gonna be
true.
fine.
Exactly. They don't need, and probably the stuff that you would prepare, they won't like anyway. So you might as well just wait and get the new version of what they do like. So I
Right.
think that's too.
Yep. Plus, you have to wait and see all of your friends that have babies already if they'll give you free stuff. I remember I was so excited to register and pick out all this stuff, and then after I had a kid, I was like, "Oh, I will take anyone's free stuff." Like, and then and then as soon as you're done with it, you're like, "I will give this to anyone for free
Yeah.
to get it out of my house."
Get it out. I know we already have stuff in bins, but it was funny because in the beginning, while we were like leading up to this, we definitely took the agency's advice of like, don't over prepare, don't have things like, don't have things that will be, emotionally triggering in any way, which I'm so glad we didn't. But it was funny because I would get advice from people, even all of our, brother-in-law, sister-in-laws, things like that. And they'd be like, this is the best X thing, or this is the best thing. They couldn't live without it. And I was like, these are all conflicting opinions. None of them are the same. And I'm like, so is every kid just completely different? And they're like, oh yeah, definitely. They all will, like some of them will
Everyone
give
has the best advice for you.
the best advice. This swing they can't live without. And like our daughter hated it the second she was in it. So it's like, it's just funny. You kind of have to just laugh
Oh, the
through
Mamaroo. My son hated.
Yeah.
Everyone said I needed a Mamaroo.
I had one of those.
Hated
I
it.
my kids loved it.
Yeah.
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 All
That's how it
different.
goes. That's right there. That's parenting.
So tell us the name that you picked out.
Do you feel comfortable?
Yeah, absolutely. So her name is Naya.
Beautiful.
It was really cute. So I sort of always had loved that name, and then my husband fell in love with it as well. So we've had this kind of prepared for a long time. We knew it needed to fit though. So obviously when we saw her in the hospital, it needed to fit. And then my husband's grandma is a Nancy Lee, so she became Naya Lee.
Oh
So
god,
yeah,
We
so we
love
got
family
to
names.
have a little family homage there thrown
I
in
love
there.
that.
Yeah. So what was it like meeting Naya for the first time?
Oh my gosh. Well, it was really funny because right before, again, no preparation, prepare for anything, but I didn't think of, whenever I thought of preparation, I thought of the logistical preparation, not the emotional preparation of
Mm-hmm.
a, I don't want to say mourning, but being sad about the chapter being over of just you and your partner. And
Mm-hmm.
right before we were about to head into the hospital to meet her, to meet our lawyer and our social worker and everyone, I actually started crying and I looked at my husband and was like, I've really loved the last 6 years with you, and this has been the greatest adventure because you're going in there and realizing that you're never just going to be you and them ever again
Totally.
in a beautiful way. Like I wouldn't change it for the world, and neither would he. But it was like a weird morning experience where it hit me all at once that it was never just going to be this like dynamic duo of him and I having fun together.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful, but I had to like quickly get over that in the 5 minutes before we went up to meet her.
That's really lovely though.
Yeah, it
That
was
is
really
so
sweet.
great.
And we went up there, and I think some of the nurses and people knew that we were coming, or saw, I don't know, saw two men standing in the lobby and were like, "Hey, are you the one are you the one coming to get me, baby girl?" And then I remember they took our car seat and started the car seat test for her.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said, "Hey, you can come around this corner." I was so glad someone actually took a video of it, but them just kind of like carrying her in this car seat asleep with this little blue hat on that I can remember, and her in the
They're
middle of
so
her car
sweet.
seat test asleep. And obviously, him and I just absolutely lost it because, yeah, that moment, I don't know that you can put it into words or that anyone can physically prepare for that feeling. But it was almost that sort of thing that I mentioned earlier about there being a chapter everything before that, and I think you immediately know like your life is going to be never the same, or this human is now yours. So
Yeah. There's like
it
a real
was
human being with a social security number that you have to
the
take a
whole thing
care
was
of.
so
That makes it sound scarier
Well,
when
they're
you
like,
say that.
I'm just saying, like it's so weird.
Yeah.
it's the whole thing felt conceptual before that, and then there's a
Yeah.
tangible human being in front of you the
Yes.
whole time that is breathing, and then they say, do you want to hold her? And it all becomes so insanely real in the best way possible, where you're like, I would have waited 100 years for you, like just for that moment alone. And I think that was the beautiful part, is that that specific moment of meeting her was everything I ever thought that it could have possibly been, because I think I didn't let myself get excited for that moment just
Right.
from protecting the weight and the experience overall. But man, oh man, I could feel that moment in my bones forever. I would.
Nyla is very lucky.
Yes, absolutely. So, did you actually meet your expectant mom, now birth mom, at the hospital?
We did not. So we had an interesting situation where we now have a closed confidential adoption. That was just part
Mm-hmm.
of her plan.
Mm-hmm.
But she was able to give us, sort of pass us a message through one of the lawyers that we were working with, which was great. One of our beautiful parts of communication, which was just, this wasn't part of our plan, but we had a beautiful family growing up, and I just wish you guys all the best. And I think just having that little piece of connection to her was kind of her love letter to us and to the
Mm-hmm.
situation and to Naya. And so forever thankful that we could at least have that. But even though this was a, again, non-traditional immediate placement and now is a closed adoption situation, the beautiful part, tying it back to why we chose adoption, it doesn't feel any less loving to me. It just feels like a different type of love and a different type of
Sure.
choice. That, again, that's why I love adoption, because all these stories fit into this box of mutually beneficial for all parties involved, and for her. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the beautiful part, is even what we expected the situation, our opportunity, our outcome to be, that wasn't what we were anticipating, but now we can't imagine it any other way. And I think that's the really, really nice part.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So, what advice?
Oh,
I know you have it
I know
ready
you
to
have some
go.
great advice.
What
do.
advice would you give other people, other couples or singles who are considering adoption?
I only have 5 prepared, so obviously.
Only 5. Oh,
Um,
well.
these are my 5. Number 1, I think would be ask people to describe their experience. I think for anyone who has gone through it, like we asked for other referrals of people who used our agency. It helped guide our expectations. Again, we asked anyone we knew if they knew anyone who had gone through it, because I think sort of collecting all those perspectives and experiences helped us to prepare for any of them that could possibly come,
Yeah.
emotionally, logistically, things like that. So I think just get to learn what that looks like. I think number 2 is what you think will be the hardest part will not be the hardest part. And that's really hard. I think
Yes.
I really like known outcomes. I like preparation. I like routine. I like knowing how exactly is this going to work. And adoption is such a release of all of that. So for people who are naturally like that, I don't think they would struggle with this, but for me, I had to realize that, again, like we talked about before, every adoption story is so different. Like every single one. There is not an adoption that is like another one. So my advice would be, at this point, don't preconceive in your mind what will be hard and what won't be hard, and don't rule out things before they happen. The types of adoption, cast your wide net, don't predetermine too much. Our adoption, like I said, was not at all what we pictured, and now I cannot imagine it any other way. So just sort of be open to that.
Love that advice.
Number 3, I would probably say, although it was again madness and a quick trip to Target to figure out what a towel is, but we didn't have a registry, nothing. The first 3-4 weeks of life, getting everything that we needed was chaos. Don't over prepare. Like, listen to the agency. Do not get things in advance. I think it would have made us way more difficult to wait. And ultimately, we live in such a quickly accessible world at this point in 2024 that, like, girl, Amazon can be at your door tomorrow.
Yes.
Like, you won't know the things she needs anyway, or he or she needs. You'll buy the ones that you don't have.
Right.
Let that sort of process and timeline just figure out what you need. And again, like you and I, like we joked about earlier, probably won't like what you get anyway, so you'll have to decide differently. The village that you have around you will help you to get to the place that you need to be in terms of what you have. The 4th one, I guess, is whether you are single or adopting with your spouse or partner, I would really have honest and open communications prior to the adoption about how you are going to let your friends or family be part of the story, or how private you are about it,
Mhm.
whether it's before or after the actual outcome or the opportunity or placement. I think being aligned on this is even more important than you think, or what we previously thought, because people are just so genuinely curious.
Yeah.
It comes from a place of joy and curiosity and encouragement. They want to be encouraging, but they'll want to know everything right away. They'll have more questions than you even know. So have those conversations with your partner or with yourself on how you plan to sort of tell that story, or how much you want people to be let into the process of adoption. We decided really early on we wanted to be sort of overly informative to others, because a lot of people in our life didn't even know the adoption, the types of adoption, things like that, so
Right.
that they could then be the most supportive to us as possible. But I think that can look different for anyone. There's no bad option, but I think just having and being aligned on how kind of open or halfway open or totally closed off you're going to be to it is really important to align on.
I agree. I do love, though, that you decided to be kind of an advocate for education in this process, because whenever you have a lot of people in your life that don't know anything about adoption, if you choose to be open about it, what a great ripple effect of people that are now educated about adoption. I mean, and that they could have a coworker that brings it up, or they hear about that they can then help and inform. So I think that's really awesome. But I agree with you. I get that question all the time, and I'm always like, don't tell anyone that you don't want to have to update constantly, because that's going to be the only thing they know about you now, because
Oh
they're going to
yeah,
be so excited, but that'll be the only how's it going? Any
Yeah.
updates?
we told people, and again, we were expecting this, but you tell people, and then it's like, you can tell they're just dying to ask you for an
Yeah,
update. Like,
it's the
you
only
don't
thing they care
proactively
about
bring
now.
it up. Every time we saw parents or friends, they'd be like, "So, how things are?" Like,
It's
"How
like
are
they
things
know
going?"
nothing else about you. It's
Yes.
like when you get engaged and they're like, "When's the wedding? Where are you getting
Yeah.
married?" Like
I
you're
want to
like,
know
"I
all the
don't know anything."
details.
Yeah. So I think that was really important. And again, it's made me realize like sort of how passionate I am about it, to just be an advocate and to be sort of a semi-transmitter educator of it in the world, as someone who has gone through it on sort of both sides of the coin now, pre what I didn't know and now what I do know. So I
Mhm.
agree. I think it's been really empowering. The last one, I do think this one's probably the most important of the five. If you are at all like me, and I don't want to try to get emotional when I say this one, but if you are all like me and had any sort of small voice of doubt in the back of your mind, if you would feel like a real parent, or if the connection you would feel is real, or you would feel the same level of love, I can tell you that I have never had a voice in my head quiet as quickly as I did until we saw our daughter. The moment itself, obviously being, like I mentioned, the most impactful, amazing, moving experience, but since that moment in the hospital, I have felt no less of her parent, no less connected, no less love. If anything, I feel 10x more love than I ever thought possible. So I would just say, do not let that voice be a fear. I get why it's there. Adoption is unique and beautiful in its own way, but you have this stupid head in your voice that says, like, I'm not their parent. I promise you that you are wrong, because that has probably been the most beautiful part of this experience, is looking at my husband or looking at her and saying, we are her dads, this is her family, and that being sort of, I wish I never thought about that as much as I did before this process.
That's awesome. I love that.
I think that's the best advice I've ever heard. And that's actually one that I haven't heard. And I feel like I
No.
talk with families a lot, but that's not that I don't think that's anything that
I
I've
get
ever
that fear a lot. And as an adopted person, it's funny because you never want to be like, well, I don't think my parents feel that way about me, but like I'm not an
Yeah.
adoptive parent, so I'm not really on the other side. So it's really nice to hear somebody on the other side intentionally want to say those words, because I do think that is a fear that people come up with in the beginning that then doesn't really get addressed after as much.
Yeah.
Or given voice to, I guess.
So I love that.
Yeah.
I can tell you put thought into the advice. Perfect.
I think it's just what I mean, that's the definition of educating, right? Or being able to tell people about it, but is you don't want them to have the same parts of the experience that you
Right.
had to go through. And I think that was something that could possibly hold you back from really enjoying this momentous life, beautiful thing, if you have this little voice in the back of your head. And I have anyone who has asked, or couples that are now interested in adoption or have seen our story, I'm like, that is the number one thing I can say, is like, I get why it's there, but please don't let that be a loud voice in your head, because
Yeah.
it went away so quickly. By the time we left the hospital, I was already like, oh my gosh, our new big beautiful family, and
Aw.
haven't looked back since. So
I want to ask one question, because you kind of alluded to it during your advice, but you said the hardest part wasn't the part that you thought it would be. So, what part would you say was the hardest part?
oh my gosh. Well, again, a little bit into the logistics. Like, I thought getting everything we need would be harder. It's not that hard. You make a list, you can copy other people's list. But I think the part that about just like parenting, I went into it thinking, sleep deprivation. How am I going to do? I'm someone who's always loved my sleep before, or we happen to have a child that after the first month or two, she's a great sleeper. And that is a beautiful thing that I could not have prepared for. But I overly prepared that sleep would be hard, when in reality, it's like communicating with your partner when you're overtired is really hard, or with
That's
developmental concerns or getting too much advice is really hard. So I think, again, not predetermining what your hard will be. I think
Mhm.
when you have an overly heightened sense of empathy, that wow, all these kids, in the sense that us adults are so different, we have different motivators, different fears, different anxieties, all kids are so different too. And I think I
Mhm.
logistically knew that, but I think going into it and saying, the thing that might be your sticking point with this particular beautiful child or adoptive child or this possible opportunity you may or may not be saying yes or no to, I think there could be a different hard to that experience, right? So I think being able to just be like open and again foundationally understand that every adoption is different. I think it's a little bit more of a freeing feeling to be like, whatever hard comes, we can handle it,
Yeah.
but it might not be
Yeah.
what we thought.
Well, biological or not, you have to get to know your kid, right? So
Exactly.
it's a
We had to do that
process.
same process, and it's no different. We've gotten to know her over the last 9 months, and again, couldn't imagine her being any different than who she is. So
Oh, that is adorable.
I know. I want updated photos and
Yeah, you have to
and a
send us that
copy of that
video.
video.
We need that
I
video
was like, I've not seen that video.
in the
we
car seat with the blue hat.
Yeah.
Send
yeah
it stat.
we also like I ended up making, because I wanted to remember it once we had her and this was an immediate placement, we ended up just FaceTiming everyone in our family with her because they didn't know it was happening, but we recorded our phones the entire time. So we basically have this video montage of our entire friends and family, just absolute shock on their face.
You have to
Yeah,
send
I'm gonna
that.
need that video.
We're
also.
gonna need that video also.
Yeah. I will forever. I watch it all the time from time to time.
I would too.
I was just gonna say I would totally be that way too.
It's just like when you're having an off day or whatever, you get a picture of her or smiling or watch that video and just remember that day and that time. You're probably a little sleep deprived, but anyways, just seeing their genuine reactions and
Yeah, and you
to
can
that
replay it.
moment was just such a tribute.
We love it.
Oh, I love that so much.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us.
Yes, thank you so much, Derek, for your time. People are gonna love your story. It's great. You have
Well,
great advice.
Thank you both. Anyone listening, please listen to these two. They know what they're talking about, and they're
Yes.
really good salespeople to the adoption process. I think
We did not ask him to say
Wait, sorry, I didn't hear you, Derek. Can you say that again?
great
that. Opposites. I'm like,
salespeople.
shh.
Absolutely. No, just lean into it. Everything's different, and I think just lean into the joy and the love and the possibility.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you, Derek, so much. I hope you enjoy your weekend with your little family, and I expect in like 10 minutes to
Yep.
have some videos. So
You know how efficient I am. It'll be in your
You
inbox.
are the most efficient.
yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye,
you guys.
Derek.
Bye.
Hi, Derek. I always loved seeing families. You know, I think it's really cool to talk to families when, you know, you haven't really gotten to see them in a while.
Yeah.
And then hear their after story. It's like the best part.
Yeah, he's wonderful. I love that he gave advice that we haven't heard before because I feel like sometimes it is the same things. Like adoptive parents tend to like
Mm-hmm.
have the same fears, but to hear him give some great advice. Everyone needs to talk to Derek. Every
Yes.
family
Yes.
needs to be a part of the team.
So thank you so much for joining us. And we're coming up on Thanksgiving. So everybody have a wonderful holiday.
Yes.
Our Wayne's World.